Do you know there are millions, there are millions of humans on this planet that are ready for your message?
Oh, it makes me cry. I'm like, what's that about? I think that's the thing that came up for me yesterday is, and then like even thinking about it today, like clearly there's hesitation in telling the old story, but the old story was, you know, 4 years ago or so when I learned NLP, the technique that I've been using to get into alignment, like by the second day of that class, I was like, holy shit, this is the secret to the secret. And like everything just started coming in. And it was like, oh my gosh, I just got the keys to the kingdom. And by the end of that course, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like Jesus, I can heal people, right? Like I feel like I had the right. And so and then almost instantly within like a month coming out of that class, I just hit so much resistance in trying to make a business out of this, or even just do it regularly, or and even though, and then I even got back in the corporate world because I was used to be a sales trainer. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, talk about practical uses in business, like getting somebody in alignment as an employee so that they can be more productive and this, that, and the other. And so I ended up getting a job in the corporate world, and I kind of introduced this to them, and I just got like door slammed after door slammed of like, they couldn't understand it. I couldn't explain it. Like we weren't on the same right. And so I just have like, since 4 years ago, just feel like this has been the biggest thing that I wanted so much, because it's just everything that I meant to do. But like I finally feel like over this last 6 months, I was able to soften that desire enough to actually start letting some things flow with it. Right now I'm like, tomorrow I have 4 clients, I have a packed schedule, and like it is starting to flow. So there was that thing yesterday with having that yummy feeling, but then also having this memory of like, yeah, but if I focus too much on making this like propelling forward in this, like, is it too early? Or is like, now have I broken through and turned a corner enough where I can just full steam ahead, go with it, and things will just line up and fall into my lap? Like there's that, I have this big like caution in my mind that because I don't want to, and I know I can't return back to getting so balled up again with it. But yeah, and I feel like that's where there's the resistance that activates in me, is like that whole thing of like, well, how do I take this to the next level and get it out to a wider audience, and that. So
This is why you want to continue to practice on this rascal that is tweaking your vibration just a bit.
Yeah.
Because the millions who are ready for your message are not where you are. They will tweak you, but that does not make them not ready.
Okay, that's good. So like it made me almost cry again. Like, so it's almost like going back to that on Monday when I talked about like the 5 a.m.ers group. So I had like a podcast call with the guy who started it yesterday, and I talked about how like I feel that this is perfect because one of my next steps I want to take is to do like group calls where I help people activate their vibrations, and one caller might raise their hand and I take them through an NLP exercise that helps release resistance and this, that, and the other. And I know that there's going to be plenty of people on those calls that are just totally could potentially tweak my vibration, like either like accuse me of lying about how this works, or just like, for instance, I'll bring up this guy to get more clarity. This guy who was part of that 5 a.m.ers group last winter, he hired me as a coach, but he was like the most difficult client ever. He even said coming into it, like, I'm going to be a difficult client. Even though, like, he knows Abraham Hicks all the way, he knows Napoleon Hill, Neville Goddard, like, you know, all this stuff. And it was almost like he knew it so much, he constantly was trying to challenge me and wouldn't, you know, but he clearly wasn't doing it well on his way, but he wasn't. Anyway, so when I run across people like that, I mean, oh. Because even like, so he's still part of the 5 Amers group, and he's somebody that I figured out 6 months ago. I had to block him. I couldn't even. I fired him as a client and gave his money back on his remaining session and stuff. And he was so argumentative, even trying to become a client again. Like, I had to block his messages, and I also had to block him because anytime I would even see his name, I would like the art. Like, I would literally hear him and me arguing in my head. And so now I feel way less agitated by him. Like, I could totally see Jake posting the podcast with me and him talking and maybe putting a comment, and I wouldn't see it obviously, but I would be less bothered. But is that part of like just what my continual growth needs to be, is to just find a way to just not be bothered, to be unwobbable?
Yes. Unwobbleable. Yes, this is the most delicious outcome for you, the most delicious application of your own energy.
Yeah.
Is to continue to practice, which you can do now. We agree that back then that was the path of least resistance to block. It is no longer your path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Because you are looking for the leverage to reach everyone on the planet who can benefit from your message, and the rest of the planet that can benefit from all of the people who can be reached, raising their vibration as a result.
Yeah.
This is the work you are doing. This is the calling that is pulling you.
Totally. That's what, like, for the longest time, I'm like, I want to be like how Abraham Hicks says, where like it's a very clear message. There's no, that's when, again, like I mentioned on Monday, I wanted to be able to start channeling because I want to be able to reach a lot of people, but I don't want to speak conflicting messages or things that aren't in true alignment with the truth of how all this works. I think that's also one reason why I prevented myself from getting out there more until I feel I understand all this that much more. I mean, if I think back 2 years ago when I thought I was ready, and what I knew then versus what I know now and can practice myself is like a whole different ball game.
Yes.
Whole different ball game.
Yes.
It's funny how advanced I thought I was 2 years ago compared to like what I know now. It's just not even comparable.